actually taught Tu Va Bien in a Missouri prison. I got it through the warden. I don't think the warden even wanted just watch the film because there's like full frontal nudity in it. But I taught it in a Missouri prison like maybe 6 years ago. So the poem is kind of based on like the weirdness of teaching this like film about May 68 in the men's prison.
You were in Jesus Christ.
So I
You were
taught for
in
3
the
years.
men's prison?
I taught for 3 years at Missouri Eastern Correctional Center. So MECC.
You have cast iron stones. I don't care what anybody says.
What's that?
You have cast iron stones. Balls.
I guess I'll
Big ovaries.
maybe.
Big fucking
I mean, maybe
bronze ovaries.
I was more afraid at the prison of the guards. The guards were really, there was actually a guard whose name was Miss Law. Her name was Miss Law. And she would interrupt the class and she'd be like, hands on the table. And I was like, they don't have to have their hands on the table. They're fine. And she would like disrupt the class. And I had to ask her to leave the class. I'd be like, I'm sorry. Like, this is actually really disruptive. Like, we're trying to learn here. And like, she was like, I'm trying to protect you. And I was like, I don't think any of these guys are trying to masturbate right now. Like, I feel like I would notice. Like, I have eyes. Because that was why there was the hand on the table rule. It was like, but yeah, you know, so it was an interesting experience. I will say, if you teach in a prison or if you spend any time in a prison, you will never again take for granted opening doors freely. Like that is it's a beautiful feeling to just like sail through a door, to not have to go through some kind of security, to not have to like just going through doors is just something we take for granted. It's a wonderful thing. The other thing that prison taught me a lot as far as like, you know, class divisions and how like there was such an interesting group, like the way that friendships would form in the class between urban Black men and rural white men who you would think have nothing in common. And some of the rural white men had belonged sometimes to white gangs, white supremacist gangs. But once they got into like, you know, the sociology class or this English class, like some of them are like become friends. And like, I just realized like the thing that almost everyone had in common is poverty. That's the thing almost everyone had in common is a background in poverty. And that was something I tried to explain a lot to people, especially within like liberal academia. A lot of people in like academia love to assume that all of my students were just like, they were all in there for drug offenses. I was like, no. A lot of them were like sex offenders or like did violent shit. Like they did bad things. Like
thanks, Michelle Alexander. Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
I mean, it was kind of like, I was like, yes, some of them drugs were related, but like, you know, selling firearms, that's a big one. Like there were just like all sorts of things. So that was interesting too, just because like I realized how white liberals especially really like to hold on to this myth that almost everyone in prison is there for drug offenses. And make no mistake, I am anti-carceral as fuck. Like I'm more anti-carceral now after having taught in a prison. But that being said, it's a delusion to think that, oh, everyone's there for like smoking weed or something like that. I think that's a story that people like to tell themselves because it makes them feel better about being anti-carceral.
Well, and it
whereas,
also teaches,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it also teaches a certain stratum of person that gets around these people to be like, all I was doing was selling a couple of rocks to feed my family because we had 18 niggers in the kitchen all looking, daddy, will you feed us? And I couldn't do nothing because the school system was racist and wouldn't let me read. So therefore, ergo.
I mean, I think that like the thing is, I have no doubt, and I've told this to some of my students who are out of prison now and I'm friends with, and they were like, you know, in St. Louis and thankfully out of the carceral system. I believe that if I were born into certain conditions, especially if I was born in a man's body, if I was a guy, I would not be surprised at all if with my sensibility, I would have been behind bars. Because like I did all sorts of things. Like I feel like there's ways that I would have gotten in trouble. But because I was like an overachieving, petite white girl, I feel like there were ways that I was able to kind of, I don't know, skirt any of that. But I think if I had been born in different circumstances, I would totally be in jail.
You think you
At
would have
least at
shanked
some
somebody in a
point.
bar? You think you would have shanked somebody in a
I
bar at
just
least once?
there's so many things I can imagine myself doing. Like I did a lot of things as a little kid that were just like there was a time that I in preschool where during nap time I jumped on the stomach of the boy who was bullying me when he was napping. He was lying on his back and I just jumped on his stomach. Like if I was not a little white girl and I did that and this was like the path for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be tossing the paddy wagon. Like there's
You
just
you would have been in those classes that aren't connected to the school. Eileen
I just
graduated at 16 because she was advanced. No, she just turned in her packets of work before everyone else.
She was, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've always there are so many ways I learned how to behave, right? I learned how to behave. I learned how to not get in trouble. But if I had been in different circumstances with my personality, I don't think that would have gone well for me. So yeah. So